What would be
practice.
what is one practice that we would do? Could you give us one?
So, one thing that I always recommend to couples is that they have a weekly tantric date. And that's what that means is that they set aside 2 full hours sometime in the week, preferably not at night, because that's usually when people are exhausted, especially if they have kids. So, it's finding time in the morning or during the day, and dedicating that time to intimacy. Now, that can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have sex. Okay? Because you don't ever want to force anybody to have sex. That's actually part of the trauma that gets created, especially for women. If well, it happens to men too, but if their partner is constantly wanting to have sex with them and they don't want to, but they do because they love them and they want to please them and they have sex with them. So that creates trauma over time, even if it's the person that you're married to.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is creating that tantric date, which is for intimacy. Intimacy can be eye gazing, communicating, masturbating in front of each other, and of course having sex. Yeah, for sure.
Welcome to the Geena the Latina Show. I am Geena. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Geena the Latina Show. Have you ever heard of Yoni eggs? Neither had I. And when I heard about them and where you put them, I immediately knew I needed to find someone to find out everything we need to know about Yoni eggs. However, Naomi Slater, she's a relationship and intimacy coach. We're going to get a lot more than just Yoni eggs from her. All right, producer Chris. So for today's guest, okay, I enlisted my 18-year-old nephew, Steven. He was the guest booker today, okay? And all I told him is I want an expert on Yoni eggs. Do you know what Yoni eggs are?
I don't know. You kind of briefly told me, but I still don't know exactly what it is.
So if you're listening, it's spelled Yoni eggs, okay? And I've always been infatuated with them or just interested in them, but I don't really know much. So I tell my 18-year-old nephew, Steven, who doesn't know anything about Yoni eggs, to go find a Yoni expert, right? So he comes back and he actually finds our first guest, Naomi Slater. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
But let me tell you, she is just way more than just an expert on Yoni eggs.
And see, you sent me her Instagram and I looked at it. I'm like,
hold up real quick. Like, subscribe, comment below, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Geena the Latina Show. Okay, let's get back to the show.
What is going on right here?
Yeah.
There's a lot to actually dissect on your Instagram too.
So before we get to you, I want to, on the Instagram, it's Divine Couples, and we'll go more into that, but it's Love Coach, and she says, I help women and couples awaken their passion, power, and pleasure.
Oh, okay.
And then it says a sex and intimacy coach, a bio-energy therapist, you're a tantra educator. They say it tantra? Tantra, how do you say it? Tantra, yoga teacher, and bio-energy healer. And then the final line I got is, helps women reclaim their wild and powerful divine feminine through Yoni eggs. Okay. So that must have been what my nephew saw. So
did he ignore everything else?
I don't know, but I think he booked a good guess. So Yoni eggs. Let's start with that, okay?
Yeah, I have so many questions.
Okay, what exactly is a Yoni egg?
Yeah. So a Yoni egg is a pure nephrite jade stone in the shape of an egg. And what you do with it is you insert it into your vagina and you do all sorts of practices with the egg. So some of the practices are physical, that you're actually tightening your pelvic floor muscles to tighten your pelvic floor. But it also has a pretty profound effect on you mentally, emotionally.
Wait, real quick. Like, how big is it? Like,
well, I can just.
I want to see it.
I
have to visualize exactly what I'm doing. So say I'm like, okay, I want to do Yoni eggs. So where do I get a Yoni egg, first of all?
So this is the Yoni egg.
Okay, it looks like a mini little Easter egg almost, but a really small one. What we say,
like silly putty,
like 2 inches.
Yeah. It's really a very special stone. Where you can buy them, on the internet, but you do need to know what you're actually purchasing. A lot of people will say it's a pure nephrite jade egg, but it's not. And this is really
you could be
what
putting
you need.
some like nonsense into you.
Yeah, you could be putting another stone into you, which could potentially crack. And then
inside of you?
Well, it probably wouldn't crack inside of you, but but if it comes shooting out of your vagina onto the floor, which it sometimes does,
Yeah.
Okay.
we can get into that later. Then it could crack, and then you might not even know. You would insert it into your vagina, and then you might get a little bit of a tear or
Oh
a
my
scratch
God.
on the inside. So you do need to be careful. You need to know what you're using.
Okay, so which kind do we buy? Like, what's the standard?
So
What's the name brand?
Yeah,
Is there a
if I
name
went on
brand?
Amazon
Yeah.
right now,
Right.
which
Yeah.
Yoni
Right.
egg is right?
well, I can tell you what I buy.
Okay.
It's Polar Jade.
Polar
It comes
Jade.
from Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the seller that I trust.
Okay.
And those are the ones that I give to women that actually do my course.
Okay, so you have a
So-
course about yoni eggs.
I do.
Okay, like how long is this course?
It's 3 months.
It's 3 months.
Yeah.
What?
So what do you? So you just teach? Okay, what do you do with this
Yeah,
course?
So it's
Give us a mini
walk
course
us
right
through.
here.
Yeah, walk us through exactly the details
look, right?
of this work.
So it's more than just the yoni egg. I would say about half of the course is focused on the yoni egg practice, but it's much, much deeper than that.
Okay.
We do emotional alchemy work. We use different psychoanalytic tools to understand ourselves more deeply, how we function in relationships, where we might be holding on to some sort of limiting belief that's messing us up in our relationships.
Yeah. You're talking. When you say relationships, are you talking about like sexual relationships or just friendships or what?
So I would say that it starts from sexual relationships because our sexual energy is our life force energy.
Yeah.
And if there's some sort of blockage there, it's going to affect, of course, our sexual relations, but it's going to affect all relationships that we have in our life, whether it be friendships, whether it be with our parents, whether it be with our kids. So this area holds a tremendous amount of energy. And if we're blocked and something's not functioning right, it's going to affect all areas of our life.
Okay. So the yoni egg helps release blocks down there?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so let's get back to the yoni egg. I still want to talk about some of the other stuff.
Yeah, like the shooting out part. I want to get to that part too. Like,
so
why?
you buy this yoni egg, and what like do you recommend, say, like if you're not going through a course to still do it, or do you recommend like we should be trained on how to use a yoni egg before we put it in our vagina?
Yeah, I think you should definitely receive training.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that could potentially happen as you're doing the practice, and you would probably need support.
So you're saying don't go to Amazon and order it and try it on my own in my room?
You can. I wouldn't advise it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there are women that do it, but it's not the best.
Okay.
I think it's much better to have somebody who's guiding you.
Like you.
Also in terms of teaching you the techniques. And also in terms of understanding what the practice might bring up for you. So a lot of women, when they do the practice, all sorts of things from their past relationships start to surface.
Like
it's kind of
emotions?
bizarre.
Really?
Yeah, emotions.
So as they're putting the yoni egg and doing whatever we're about to get to, all these emotions start coming out.
Sometimes, not
Okay,
always.
okay.
Sometimes it happens after the practice. It's not always when the practice is actually happening, but I've had a lot of instances where women have come to me after their first or second or third yoni egg practice, and they said, look, all of this stuff started coming up for me from past relationships. I didn't realize I even had this trauma.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden it comes up.
And what you're saying is that trauma could be blocking why maybe in your current relationship there's something missing or whatever.
For
right?
sure. For sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the yoni egg. Say we're going to you for like session 1 or whatever, your workshop 1. What do you teach us? Like, what do you do?
I'm all like, let me get my notes out right here. You know?
Do we like all lay down
Yeah.
and we put it in ourselves? Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
So first I give kind of an introduction to what is Tantra so people understand where I'm coming from.
Yes, what is Tantra? Please tell me, because I didn't even know how to pronounce it.
Right. So Tantra is actually an ancient philosophy. It came from India.
Okay.
And it's actually much broader than what people think. Today, when people say Tantra, most people think it's sexual practices. Okay. If you go into the scriptures, the ancient scriptures from India, Tantra includes yoga. It includes a huge philosophy, which if I were to summarize, kind of summarize it in a nutshell, what it says is that every experience that we have is a different form of divinity. And Tantra pretty much says that there is no human experience which we should negate, not the positive or the negative. Everything is divine.
Okay.
So that's kind of Tantra in a nutshell. Now, of course, there are these sexual practices which were at the time very, very, they were kept secret. They were secretive. Because as we know, so many people misuse and manipulate through sex.
Mm.
So the only people that were essentially allowed to do these practices were people that had reached a certain level in their evolution, people that would not misuse this energy or manipulate others or harm others through these practices. So that's a very important part of this, is to understand that. And of course, there are tantric practitioners that do misuse this energy, but it's important to be very discerning when picking a practitioner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you explain that, which I'm still a little confused if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, what would be the next thing in your workshop then?
So first is, like I said, the introduction to Tantra. And then I would start with explaining how to use the Yoni egg, how to prepare the Yoni egg for practice, contraindications, who shouldn't use the Yoni egg, when not to use the Yoni egg. For example, if you have a vaginal infection, if you're menstruating, if you're pregnant. So these are times where you would not use the Yoni egg.
Okay.
So it's just kind of explaining that. And explaining the different effects. So one is the physical effect, where you're actually tightening the pelvic floor muscles, tightening the vagina, which is really important for women, especially after childbirth, but not only. It's something that all women should be working on.
Is this something that helps with if you, I know as you get older, I don't know if you guys know this, but some little pee comes out. So this is what it is.
Oh, okay.
And especially,
I did not know that.
I know when women, after they have babies, it's really hard for them to keep their pee in. So using a Yoni egg can actually help with that too.
It does. It does help. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've experienced it myself. I've birthed 3 kids.
Oh, wow.
So this for sure helps.
Okay.
And then, of course, the emotional aspect, which I talked about a bit. And there's also the spiritual aspect, which you actually learn how to channel and move your sexual energy through this practice. So it's quite different from a sex toy. It's not a sex toy. This is a spiritual practice, which of course has also physical and mental, emotional benefits. But the goal is really to learn how to channel this energy and to use it in our daily life, whether it be in our relationship, in our profession. It's just to be kind of a more awakened and whole being through this practice.
Would this be for someone sometimes women and men have low sex drive and they can't figure out why? Would this be something there's a blockage that needs to be released somehow and the Yoni can help?
For sure. When I treat couples, and I treat a lot of couples that have kids, and for a lot of couples, especially after they have kids, they lose their libido, for whatever, there are tons of reasons as to why, but this Yoni egg for the women really helps to awaken their libido, take back their power, and it just makes women way more juicier.
Juicier?
Oh, wow. Okay. So can you send me the link to that? When you're doing this and you're kind of going through the process, you said with couples, are men allowed into the workshop, or is it just strictly women at first and then you break it down to couples?
So in the course that I do online, it's only for women.
Okay.
But when I work with couples, I work with them privately in a very different way. Some of the stuff that I do is with only the woman, the Yoni egg practice.
Yeah.
But a lot of the work is working with the couple together and giving them all sorts of different sexual practices, but not only, also communication, which is a really important piece in our sexuality. If we're not communicating properly, there's going to be an issue with the sex. If there's an issue with the sex, there's going to be an issue with the communication. They go hand in hand. So it's really, there's a lot that goes in there.
I feel like women would be more they would want to go to this and men would be more hesitant. Is that what you found or no?
It's interesting. That's kind of what I thought. But the truth is that the reason I got into Tantra is because of my husband. My husband, we were kind of in a rut after our second kid. And we weren't, we were having sex and we have had a great relationship, but we were just stressed and overworked and our communication started getting messed up, and he wanted to have sex and I was rejecting him. That was kind of the pattern. And I know that this is a pattern for lots of couples. And he was actually introduced to Tantra. He started practicing on his own. There are tantric practices that you practice on your own, just like the woman practices with this. The male also has practices that he does on his own. And he wanted me to join him, and I was really resisting. I didn't want to do
Wow.
it.
Mhm.
I didn't want more expectations of me in bed. I was totally maxed out.
Yeah.
um, and eventually I realized that this issue is not going to go away for him. And really, it's not going to go away for me either because I wasn't satisfied. Nobody's satisfied um, when they're rejecting their partner. Everybody wants to be in their passion. Everybody wants to feel pleasure. But we have all sorts of things that get in the way of that.
Yeah.
So I realized that at a certain point, and I dived in, and we went to different workshops, and eventually we met this woman who first treated us and then trained us both as practitioners. So for us, it was actually the opposite. It was him pulling me in. And I find that it goes both ways. It really just kind of depends. I've treated couples where the male actually turned to me,
Mhm.
and of course, others where the woman turned to me, but there are no rules.
I
Hmm.
love that you do this because I feel like it's so taboo. Because I feel like how you said like a lot of like sometimes the woman's pushing away or the man's pushing away. That you just at different times of life, and no one talks about it, and people end up fighting, people end up cheating, people end up divorcing, people end up, and no one like talks about how can we fix this and it's not something that I don't want to say fix because I don't feel like there's something wrong with the person, but like how can we navigate this? And I'm glad you're talking about this because I think people like even that may be listening right now are like, oh yeah, I guess I haven't had sex in a few weeks. Like, why don't I have
What's going on there?
yeah, what's
Yeah.
going on? And that it's okay to talk with someone like you
Hmm.
about it, and you actually give people practices to like move forward.
Yeah,
Correct?
I give people practical practices,
Yeah.
and also we talk about things because that's an important piece of this is what you're saying. It's so taboo. People are afraid to talk about it. They don't know how to talk about it. The way that we've been raised, whether it be through our parents, religion, culture in general, that really keeps all of these issues in the closet.
Yeah.
People don't even know how to engage with it. And it's such a basic human need. It's such an important part of our lives. It doesn't have to be perverted.
Yeah.
It's a really, actually, it's a very beautiful and sacred thing. And it's important. If you're going to have a healthy relationship with someone, that's an important piece of that relationship. So I think it's very important
Yeah.
that people start healing that part of themselves.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know you have like so I didn't know. So you have one-on-one sessions. So you're a couples therapist too, and then you'll go. So I don't want to like give away everything, but it's like what's one like say me and Chris were a couple or not, but say we are. he's
We're
actually
not.
he's actually
Yeah.
he's married to my cousin.
Yeah.
But what is like
Sorry,
one
wife.
when you said like you give us homework? I don't know what the exact word is that you just said, but what
Yeah.
would
Like
be like
practice.
yeah, what is one practice that we would do? Could you give us one?
So, one thing that I always recommend to couples is that they have a weekly tantric date. And that's what that means is that they set aside 2 full hours sometime in the week, preferably not at night, because that's usually when people are exhausted, especially if they have kids. So, it's finding time in the morning or during the day and dedicating that time to intimacy. Now, that can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have sex, okay? Because you don't ever want to force anybody to have sex. That's actually part of the trauma that gets created, especially for women. If they're, well, it happens to men too, but if their partner is constantly wanting to have sex with them and they don't want to, but they do because they love them and they want to please them and they have sex with them. So that creates trauma over time, even if it's the person that you're married to.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is creating that tantric date, which is for intimacy. Intimacy can be eye gazing, communicating, masturbating in front of each other, and of course having
Really?
sex. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, okay. So in theory, when you say that, well, I was like, well, when you say it,
Shocked her right now, I think.
it sounds yeah, that sounds like that would work, right? So as I'm sitting here, whatever. But I can't imagine my boyfriend and me, and I'd be like, hey, okay, let's masturbate together. Like, why do I like feel that that's so weird? And we shouldn't feel that that's weird, right?
So I used to feel that way too. And what I realized is that there are times where I just don't want, or at least when I start out, I'm not yet ready for touch. It takes me some time. And of course, this is because our minds are racing with so many
Right.
things. Our body actually always wants to make love, but our minds get in the way. So it's a way to kind of help me ease in to kind of getting my juices going and getting my thoughts out of my head and being present in the moment. So sometimes a lot of times actually, that leads to intimacy. We start out kind of doing our own thing and looking at each other and enjoying that. And then that moves into something else. But then it comes from a place of, I want this, not it was forced upon me.
That makes sense. All right, hold up. This is like your 20-second Geena the Latina PSA. I need you to like, comment, subscribe below because we want to keep this show going. So if you're liking what you're hearing, please do us a favor and like, comment, subscribe below, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Geena the Latina Show. That's the Geena the Latina Show. I don't know why I can't talk. Back to the show.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm taking a lot of notes right now, believe it or not. But I kind of want to get back to the egg. Like, okay, so.
Back to the egg.
Yeah, because
I'm still confused on the egg. I'm not going to be honest.
I'm looking at it right now and I'm like, is it heavy? Like, what's
how much does it weigh?
Well, I would let you hold it, but it's been in my Yoni, my vagina. So I think I'm going to keep it with me. But
yeah, thank you for offering that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it actually is quite dense and heavy, and that's part of the reason why this egg is used. If I were to throw it, which I won't, it probably wouldn't crack. It doesn't. It's
Would
not
it crack
fragile.
the tile though? Like, is it that heavy where it probably could?
It's never cracked. I don't know. It's never cracked a tile, but it's a
Okay.
very, very dense and non-porous egg. And one is because you don't want any bacteria to get into the egg because, of course, you're inserting it into your yoni or vagina.
That's what I was going to ask you. So I didn't even know. So Yoni is vagina.
Yes, in Sanskrit.
Okay. In what?
In Sanskrit, which is the ancient Indian
okay.
scripture language.
Okay. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but actually, this is an ancient Chinese practice. This comes from China. It was actually used by concubines that wanted to maintain their vitality and their power and their beauty. And because when you have a strong pelvic floor, you're able to pull your energy up to your higher centers. If you have a weak pelvic floor, your energy is going to be just kind of dispersed through your open vagina.
Yeah.
So, and you don't want to have an over tight vagina. You need to be able to have both strength and also flexibility and suppleness and relaxation there. You need to be able to do both of those things.
So in your workshops, then they do it and then you show them like I'm imagining like pelvic thrust, different things like that, different positions.
I show them clothed. My video is on, and I tell them and I show them what to do in terms of the breath work and the movements. And they turn off their videos and they do the practice.
Okay.
Live.
Live?
Sometimes. I mean, my course is pre-recorded, but I also do live practices for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that people might be at a disadvantage because you're a yoga person? Let's say I have no yoga experience whatsoever, and I'm seeing you do all these like kind of different positions, and I try to do that. Do you think that'll work, or does that play a factor?
The positions are really, really easy.
Okay.
It's not like advanced yoga postures as you're doing the yoni egg. I realize that, the man's fantasy is taking this to different places.
I just want to make sure I just want to make sure that's actually something
behind the head.
that people can do, because I'm like your yoga.
It's so
flexible.
simple stuff.
It's simple stuff. It's simple stuff, and it's about really creating awareness and increasing your sensitivity. So, for example, if you were to compare this to a sex toys usually vibrate.
Yeah.
And the goal is to orgasm, right?
Yes.
So
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. I'll answer for the class. Yes.
So this is quite different. This actually, when you insert it, you're not going to feel a whole lot. It's not like you're going to feel an egg inside your vagina. Most women don't really feel very much.
Really?
Yeah. So what it does is it forces you to kind of map out your yoni and to start feeling things that you weren't feeling before. And that can also increase your orgasmic potential and sensitivity.
What would you say, like, the percentage? You probably actually know the percentage of like women and men that are probably majority women that do not reach their orgasmic.
It's about 70% of women have never experienced a vaginal internal orgasm.
Yeah, and I say that all the time because, sorry guys, but there's very few times that a girl's actually having an orgasm during sex. It's usually the foreplay, it's usually after, it's on their own, but actually during sex. And guys think like, oh no, my girl had. I have a lot of guy coworkers, and we talk about this. I'm like, oh yeah, my girl had an orgasm. No, she faked it. I know she faked it. She faked it. Your girl's faking it for you. Blah blah blah. Because unless you've gone through all this, which most women have not, I feel like it's sad that girls don't orgasm when with the dick
with their
in
partner.
it. Yeah. Well, you do like before or after, but we were talking about when it's actually in you.
Yes.
And that's something you're saying we could change, because I always
Yes.
thought that was
Yes.
just something that just can't be changed, and that's just kind of how it is.
No. It can for sure be changed, and there is no such thing as an inorgasmic woman unless there is some sort of physical issue that she has going on there. But women have the ability to orgasm internally through penetration.
Really?
It requires both work in order for the woman to understand her body more deeply. So we haven't really been educated
At all. On
you know,
that.
in this stuff. And men also, they don't know their biological capacity. There's some very basic things that the majority of men don't know that they're capable of.
Wow. Okay.
So if
like,
you want
what-
me to throw that out
yeah,
there, I
throw it
can.
out. Yeah. Give us an
Yes,
example.
Give us
You
some
can't just leave me with
examples, since
that.
we have
Yeah.
4 men in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm actually curious to know if you all know that men can separate between ejaculation and orgasm. So that means that you can experience orgasm without actually ejaculating.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Did you
Has
guys know
anyone
that?
done that in here?
Dry orgasms?
So
Producer Drew
there-
said it's called dry
Sound
orgasm.
guy Drew.
Sound
Drew.
guy, sorry.
Yeah.
We're sound guy Drew.
Just came up with everyone's name. Come on.
So okay, perhaps, but it's also called semen retention. It's a practice where men learn how to withhold their ejaculation.
Does that do anything
But they can still
internally, though?
orgasm.
Yes.
So what
It's
would
a
be the
different-
benefit of that? That you could just keep going longer?
Yes, first of all.
Uh-huh.
Secondly, when a man ejaculates, he loses a tremendous amount of life force energy. So men that are constantly ejaculating,
They're just like tired.
they're just tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're spent.
So you're saying you could teach a man how to orgasm without actually ejaculating?
Well, they have to teach themselves, really.
Yeah.
I can give them, the practice. It requires work. It's something that can sometimes take years to develop, but it's very possible. And men can actually have full body orgasms, more similar to what women experience when they start to practice these practices.
Wait, guys don't have full body orgasms?
Well, I mean, I can't tell you because I'm not a guy, but I think that
Speaking as a guy,
Like,
maybe you should talk about that a
like,
bit.
so when you say a full body orgasm, what does that mean?
Yeah, are you talking about like you're convulsing, or like what exactly do you mean by that?
Okay.
Like, am my legs shaking? Like,
No, it's this kind of opening where
Yeah.
you feel like your whole body is being flushed by this energy.
Mhm.
And you just feel this kind of opening and it goes up to your head.
Yeah, that's how girls feel. when
yeah,
we-
I could say I don't think
So
I've
what
ever
does it
felt
feel
that.
like
Yeah.
for
with
guys?
men, when they ejaculate, it's more localized.
It's just there. That's it. They don't
Yeah.
their
Well,
whole body.
It's just in that area more.
Yeah, it's in the lower Netherlands.
So you're saying that guy could have a full body is better, is what you're saying? Or
I'm not saying that it's better. It just opens up more potential to experience more. And we have that potential. So why not experience it? It's a beautiful thing. And when the male starts to experiment and practice more semen retention, the women can actually, they have a much higher chance of experiencing internal orgasm.
why?
Because what happens in a lot of sexual encounters is for the woman to experience internal orgasm, she needs time.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't happen after 2 minutes.
That's what guys don't get. Like for girls, it's more like emotional.
I think guys do know
No,
that.
they
part.
don't.
Yeah.
No, some guys do not. Like it's more emotional. Where it's like it takes us a while, takes to get into it. There's more than just that. A guy can just literally, oh, good, we're done.
Right, exactly.
Tired.
Wash
There
my
you go.
hands.
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you in the morning. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No. That's exactly it. Because that's what happens in a lot of sexual encounters is the man rushes into ejaculation because that's what they've been trained to do.
Because it's in all the films. That's why. You know,
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of adult
There's a
content
lot of
that's been out there.
conditioning.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. So there's that. There's porno,
Yeah.
where guys get it from. And also I think it starts even when guys start to go through puberty, boys. And they start to masturbate and they feel ashamed. Okay. And they don't want somebody to like knock on the door or for mom to come in all of a sudden. So they're used to kind of just getting it over with, just kind of getting to the. So in Tantra, it's quite the opposite. The goal is not orgasm at all.
What is the goal?
The goal is being present in the act of lovemaking and experiencing that moment. Because if you're goal oriented in the act of lovemaking, you're not actually enjoying the moment, and you're skipping out on the intimacy. You're just trying to reach orgasm. So when you're in that state of mind, you're not really understanding what it is to make love.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a lot to dissect right now, man.
So I am totally interested. So if people, I know you have workshops throughout the year, but if people wanted to like book a one-on-one session or go to a workshop, how can they find you?
So the best place is my website, which is www.naomislater.com, NAOMISLATER. You can also go to my Instagram account, which is @divine.couples.
Yeah.
That's the name of my business.
And you have a podcast too?
And I do. I have a podcast also called Divine Couples.
Yeah.
So you can check me out there.
Chris, I was looking at some of the titles. The last one was called Conscious Cock.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. And what is that? What is that about? If you give me in a nutshell. Hey,
So Conscious Cock, he's this really, really special guy. And he wrote this book, all of a sudden, I just can't remember his name, but Christopher Love Stone, that's his name. And he's a therapist like myself. He works with pretty much the same population, but with couples and men. So I work with couples and women. He works with couples and men. And he wrote this really amazing educational book, which helps people understand some of these things that we haven't been educated on in order to help people create more intimacy in their relationships.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you can check it out.
Yeah, I think it's.
So you can find the podcast on your Instagram?
Yes, you can find it on my Instagram. There's a link in my bio where you can check out all of my last podcasts. Some of them are interviews. Some of them are monologues where I just kind of go off on different topics. Yeah.
Is there any last minute, I don't know, advice you could give to someone? Like, I guess, I think the majority of, men are listening to this but women, and women who don't feel empowered sexually, whether it's in a stale marriage, whether it's they're single, whether it's they're in a relationship, whatever it is there any advice you could give them on? Because I feel like sometimes women and men probably feel like, it's a never ending story. Like it's not gonna, I can't be this sexual prowess that like Naomi. So I don't know if you are, but I'm just saying.
Thank you.
Someone that's so aware of themselves and their body, and yes, all this sounds great, but I can't actually get there myself.
Yeah. So just so that people know, I'm in a monogamous relationship. I've been married for 13 years.
Wow.
3 kids. So I've got a really busy life. And I know that a lot of women, not, even women without kids, can feel trapped in their relationship, and that, they don't want to leave because they love the person that they're with, but they feel like they're not satisfied sexually. And over time, it's a really deteriorating way to live. It's not how it was meant to be. So if you're in a loving relationship and there's trust in the relationship, and in the beginning of the relationship there was passion, you can get it back.
No, even if you've been together for 20 years.
Even if I just treated somebody that they were together for 20 years.
Wow.
And I think she'd only experienced one internal orgasm, and it was a long time ago.
Wow.
And after working with them for 3 months, and even before the 3 months were up, she was having internal orgasms all of the time, and really
with the same partner from 22.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And really claimed her pleasure and her power back.
Yeah. How much work does it take to get there? Was she seeing you every day? Was she seeing you?
It was once a week.
Once a week.
We were having sessions once a week online.
And she was doing all your homework probably.
Yeah. You have to commit to the process because, I'm guiding people through this, but if you're not actually doing the work, you're not going to see any results, And again, it needs to be with somebody that you trust. I think
Yeah.
that that's a really important piece, and somebody that you're in a loving relationship. Because if you're not in a loving relationship and you don't trust the person that you're with, this is not right for you. You know, it needs to be, because you need to actually open up and show your vulnerability in order to create this kind of deep intimacy. And if you're not with someone you trust, you can't do that.
Yeah. And so say you're not, what about single people? It's still good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have women in my course that are single. Maybe they want to attract the right partner. Maybe they feel like they're kind of in relationship patterns that are not good for them, but they keep choosing the same type over and over and over again. So this is also work that can help with that. It's kind of uncovering some of these limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves, about our sexuality. And once we embody something that's different, we can attract something that's different.
Yeah.
So what we embody is what we attract.
Yeah. And I think that's a basic concept, not just when even sexual, but in general, that people don't understand. Like, when they're looking for the partner, like, I want this, I want this. Like, the best thing is to you become that person that you would want. And then that person comes in. I
Yeah.
100% believe in all that. And that's even with work stuff, with relationship stuff, with everything. Once you embody that, then you'll attract that.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, this was very interesting. I think
Yes,
I'm
it
going to
was.
sign up with some courses for you. Again, your website
Is www.naomislater.com.
and your Instagram.
Is at divine.couples.
Well, thanks for coming on our podcast.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you
very
so much,
much.
Geena. I appreciate it. Thank you.